Hello, hello. Heather Jean here. Confidence with Coffee. That's this segment. And if you haven't been here before, the Confidence with Coffee playlist always relates to that week's podcast or vodcast. So you will find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts on Confidence Through Cabaret. Have a search, or you can switch over after you've watched this and have a look at the Vodcast playlist, and you'll be able to find the relevant podcast, the video version. Now, usually I'm joined by a guest. So let me get comfortable here. Usually I'm joined by a guest on the podcast or vodcast. And I wanted to do last week, this week, and next week on my own, really just kind of talking about work-life confidence. Last week we talked about personal life confidence, and next week we'll be talking about stage life confidence, whatever your stage is. And the reason that I wanted to do this series is because Confidence Through Cabaret, we talk about personal life, work life, and stage life. And we have most of the skills and strategies that we already need in order to at least set off on our journey to be successful. So a lot of us are confident in our personal life, but not so confident in our work life, or confident in our stage life, but not so confident in our personal life, or wherever it is. So what we say is figure out where you're strong. Start from where you're strong. And then look at where you want to go and where you want to develop, in this case, confidence, and what that means and what you need to do in order to get that. And then look through your inventory of where you're strong and why you're strong, and you'll find that there are a lot of transferable skills there. So that's kind of the starting point for success. And what that means is that gives us some momentum, and that helps us to be able to start off on the right foot and to really gain that confidence quickly and easily. And of course, confidence isn't one of those things that once we have it, we keep it and that's it. It's a really bumpy road up and down. But what we find is once we have that momentum, our lows are not as low, and we don't stay down for as long, because we are strong. So we can, quickly pick ourselves up. And so this week we are talking about work life, and I shared some information which you can go check out on the Vodcaster podcast around balance and boundaries, and why that matters for our work life most, especially if you're working from home or you're in your own business, because you might find that your work life takes over and you're spending too much of your time in and around your work life, and you're not having the time that you need for your own self-care or your personal life or your community or your family or wherever you want to have time. Or you might find it's the other way. You're doing too much for other people and you're not getting enough done in terms of your own work life and progress that way. We also talked about alignment of values in this week's podcast, and we talked about the balance of masculine and feminine energies. So go and check that out, after you've had a look at this. But I wanted to play a little clip from what we talked about this time. So let me just find the little clip. This is the first time I'm doing it this way because my video editor has left me now. And so I'm grown up. I'm going to figure this out and do this myself. So with, of course, some advice from him. But here we go. Here's the clip. Let's roll it. Very interesting where our limitations sit. So back to the presentation skills, a lot of what I did before COVID was helping people to be able to upskill their presentations and their confidence around giving presentations. And then when COVID happened, of course, so many of us were working from home, online, on Zoom or Google Meet or Hangouts or wherever you meet your team. And what's interesting about that is we got more used to being visible. There are still a lot of people who struggle with the camera work and being on camera. And I get that. And especially if you have to see yourself or watch yourself back, it can be a bit tricky. But those kind of things are also, if we follow that thread, what can stop us from applying for another job, for example. All right. So in that segment, I was explaining around how our imposter voice or our inner critic or imposter syndrome, or however you prefer to reference it, how that voice limits us. And not only, but especially women. There's a lot of research on this now that talks about women won't apply for promotion or even a sideways step into something new if they don't have 100% of the job requirements. Whereas men generally will. When women get a promotion or that job that's with something new, they'll often put it down to luck, or they'll feel like they can't do it perfectly very quickly. And so that imposter voice can be very limiting for us. And so it is important, in fact, essential, that when we are trying to have a work life success, whether that's in an established business working for somebody else, or whether that's in your own business, that you have that confidence in your mind to be able to know that you are capable, to know that you are going to be able to have good days and bad days, but those failures are not a bad thing. And to being able to know that from those failures you learn, you grow, and you get better each time. Now, what happens is that a lot of the time we internalize those failures as bad things, and we don't want to go back to that place again. So we avoid it. Or, and that's what I was talking about in that example in that clip, was around presentations. And I gave a presentation, it went badly. I actually coached somebody once. It was quite a number of years ago now, but they said every third time they did a presentation, it went wrong. So the number one and number two would be fine. Number three would go dismal. And then number one and number two would be fine. And number three would be a massive disaster. And I asked for what that logic was. And it was because their third, sixth, and ninth one, and they'd spent the time to look at that, had gone wrong. And so that became this belief that we needed to untangle around, how realistic is that? And also, we use what we call embedded commands when we talk to ourselves about those failures. So I don't want to forget what I was going to say. I don't want to, mess up with the technology. I don't want to. Now, when you say I don't want to, then what happens is your brain has to hear I want to and then negate it. So, for example, I hope I don't trip and fall. What our brain thinks in terms of do trip and fall and then negates it, right? So it's a really, I mean, this, we talk about this a lot in neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, and there's a podcast episode that you could check out around that as well. If you go into the podcast, you'll find it. But I think, when we think about being intentional, it's about saying what we do want. When we set our career goals, it's about saying what we are aiming for. So, for example, if I was making a personal goal and I was saying that I wanted to, I don't know, lose weight, then it would be, that's a negative, right? So I would need to think about what I do want. I want to be more fit. I want to be more strong. I want to have more stamina. I want to have more energy. Those would be more positive goals. And the more that we can say these things in the positive, then the stronger we can become. So coming back to something like presentation skills or going live, in fact, which we'll talk about more next week, it's really important that we think about what we are doing, how we're progressing, rather than what we're not doing and what's going wrong. So, thinking about, I'm doing my very best. I'm going to do my very best with my presentation. I'm doing my very best to prepare for my presentation, rather than, yeah, but I don't know all these things. And what if they ask me this? And I'm doing my very best to prepare for any questions that might come up or comments that might come up. And so that's our way of kind of respinning that voice. So rather than it being negative and going in a downward spiral, we respin that into a different focus. That gives us a lot of power and momentum away from that imposter voice or that inner critic. Because the inner critic will want to say, who are you to be doing this? What if people laugh, or, or worse? What if I do trip and fall? What if I forget what I was going to say? The other thing is that with presentations, particularly, and I wouldn't like to guess how many hundreds of people I've coached on this, but it's very often people say, yeah, but I didn't say that thing, or I forgot that part. You don't know what the audience doesn't know what you were going to say. You don't know what I was going to say. Maybe I've skipped half the stuff I was going to say already, or maybe I've added in new stuff that I wasn't planning on saying. We don't know somebody else's, so therefore we won't judge that. So where focus goes, energy flows. And where we focus is where we point our direction. And when we point our direction that way, it's like a compass, we can keep spinning and pivoting. Which direction are you looking to head in? And I'm not talking about north changing space, changing places. I'm talking about, if you point your direction in one way, that's the where your focus will go. And so when we think about our inner critic or our imposter voice telling us that we cannot do it, then you need to change that. That's a huge amount of what I do in my coaching work around how we overcome those things, how we replace our beliefs for more positive, more relevant and serving beliefs. And if you want to go check out the Vodcast, please do. If you want to know more information about doing that, I do lots of masterclasses for free, which are not on social media. So there's no replays. We do them live and we do them together. And I do lots of things around, feeling good in our body, to accept ourselves where we are and to find that mind-body connection in a really positive way. But what we went on to talk about in the Vodcast or podcast this week was knowing what your brand essence is. Now, not only should you know what your brand essence is in terms of your own personal essence, but also in terms of if you're working for a company or you have a company, you should know what your brand essence is. So definitely do go and check that out. But what I love about that brand essence exercise is that reminds us who we are at our core, or who our business is at our core. And then we can follow from there. So for example, Confidence Through Cabaret, the brand essence is very definitely inspiring, and everything that comes from inspiring, being inspiring, acting inspiring, looking inspiring, feeling inspiring, all of those things are at the heart of Confidence Through Cabaret, and that informs how we create our brand and our look and feel and colors and logos and fonts and all of those things. So go and check out the Vodcast or podcast, and you'll be able to get more information about that. There is also a brand essence video I did for the Facebook community, which is very near and dear to my heart, that I decided to share here on YouTube as well. And if you check out the Coffee in the Community, so this is the Confidence with Coffee, which goes with the podcast and podcast, but the other one is Coffee in the Community, and that's because I'm having a coffee with my community and I'm sharing something with them, or I'm joining a guest in the community. And we always welcome people to have a coffee in the community, come on live, especially if you're looking to show up in your space and get used to being on stage, or share what you're doing in your business. So that's this week's Vodcast. I'm so happy that you were here. Go and have a listen. Please like and subscribe while you're here. And we are Confidence Through Cabaret on all of the socials except for Twitter. We are at YBYWYS, and I am at Heather YBYWYS on Clubhouse, and those 6 little letters stand for it is your body, and it is your world, and it is your stage. Take up space and own it. Thanks very much for being here. Really appreciate it. And we will see you next week for Stage Live. Go check out Personal Life from last week as well. Bye for now.